Hey guys, it's John. I'm back with another video. This time it's the AFC and NFC South. 3 questions for them. And I just want to clue something up. These questions, they're not going to be answered at the end of preseason. They're not going to be answered during the start of the regular season. These are questions that you got to look out for throughout the whole year. Like the thing with Philadelphia and their quarterback. And what I said, quarterback battle. Well, it's going to be a battle all year because Bradford's going to be looking over his shoulder. And the minute he screws up, they're either going to put Daniel in, or they could put Winston if he's ready. Alright, that's what I meant by that, okay? Bradford's going to be fighting for that job all year, okay? He needs to be consistent. Alright, let's start with the Texans for these 3 questions. And the first question is their quarterback situation finally solved? Do they finally have a franchise guy in Brock Osweiler? His first preseason game, he didn't do that great. I wouldn't even say that was average. So, he's got to be better. Alright, let's be honest. He has to be better. And, well, don't be concerned yet. Okay, it was his first preseason game. Remember, he's in a new town, new offense. So, you know, just wait till the second and third preseason games. Wait till they're over, and we'll get a better idea of whether we should be concerned or not. Number 2 receiver. You know, we all know the year that DeAndre Hopkins had. Well, now he's going to have a target on his back because now teams are probably going to be double covering him and triple covering him a few times. So they need to get someone to take the pressure off him, whether it's Jalen Strong, whether it's Will Fuller, whether it's someone else on that roster. Someone has to step up and be the number 2 guy. And finally, Jadeveon Clowney. When are we going to see this guy perform, well, basically to the traits that he has? Because he has the ability to be probably the most feared pass rusher in this league, and yet he keeps getting hurt, and he keeps being inconsistent. We have to see him perform. We have to. Okay, Indianapolis. The first question is luck. Can he be back to what he was before last year? Because remember, before last year, he kept growing each year as a starter. Then last year happened, and he basically, it's like he fell off a cliff. Or actually fell off a mountain. That might be a better one. Fell off a mountain. And we'll see. We'll see. I personally think he'll be back to his old self. I think he will earn that contract in time. I don't think he's going to earn it right away. You know, he's the highest paid player in the league, so... But if he can keep growing and growing, we could be seeing him in the Super Bowl a few years from now. But he's not going to get better if that line doesn't get better. You know, the reason he got hurt was because the line was terrible. He kept getting beat up every single week. So right now, the line has got to be better. They just drafted some pieces. And let's see. Alright. Line, protect the quarterback. And finally, can they compete again? I personally think they can. If Luck stays healthy, if that line is there, if his receivers are there, if the defense is good, and if they have somewhat of a running game. And that's it. It's simple. Tough, but simple. Okay, Jacksonville. I'm just going to say this right now. Look for Jacksonville to be a dark horse. Look for them to, I would not say win the division. I'm just going to say compete for the division title. Or playoff berth. Okay? Just look for them to compete. Because I think they have the tools right now to do it. But that won't happen if Bortles does not prove that he's a franchise quarterback. Bortles, you are in your 3rd year. Prove to them that you are the franchise. I know what you're thinking. His 2nd year, he already proved that. No, he didn't. He got better, yes, but he has to cut down on the turnovers. He had, like, I think, 18 interceptions last year. That cannot happen again. That can't happen. That's more than an interception a game. He has to be better. He's got to be consistent. Okay? Bortles, yes, he had a terrific 2nd year, but he can be better. Okay, this defense has to be better. Okay, it's about as plain and simple as that. They now have the pieces to be a good defense. Use them. And finally, they have two running backs that can start for any team on this league, in Chris Ivory and TJ Yeldon. How are they going to use them both? I really want to see what they can do because you basically have a 1-2 punch there. You could probably have the best 1-2 punch in this league. And don't forget about Denard Robinson. He could be the change of pace guy and take some heat off of those two when they need it. Okay, Tennessee. Improvement, improvement, improvement. Are you going to show us improvement this year? You had all these picks in the draft. Show it. Show us that you are starting to improve. It doesn't even have to be much. You can, I mean, they were 2-14. Just, I mean, 4 wins. That's an improvement. Okay, that's the goal. 4. 4 wins. But that's not going to happen if Mariota does not step up. That's the second question. Is Mariota going to have a good sophomore season? Is he going to have a good second year as the starter? Okay, he had a solid rookie year. Yes, now he's got to build off of that. But he's not going to do that if he doesn't stay healthy. He has to stay healthy. He missed 4 games last year because he got hurt. He has to be healthy. He's got to stay healthy. Okay? He's not going to get better if he's not on the field. And finally, Mariota's not going to do anything if these receivers do not step up. They just traded Darrell Green Beckham to the Eagles because he was being inconsistent all offseason. That's saying something to these receivers. Look, we have a bunch of picks in next year's draft. If one of you does not step up, we will not be afraid to get rid of you and take someone in the draft. Okay, and it all starts with Kendall Wright. Kendall Wright, yes, he had a 90-catch season in his second year, but he hasn't done much since. He's in his 5th year in the league. Be that number 1 receiver that they want you to be. Alright? These receivers, I think this is the worst receiving core in the league right now. I mean, can they really be this bad? Can they really be this bad? I hope not. Sorry about that. Anyway, the NFC South, starting with Atlanta, and it all starts with Matt Ryan. Where is he gonna? Which Matt Ryan is he gonna be? Is he gonna be the one from last year that basically struggled a lot during last year, or is he gonna be the Matt Ryan of old that was constantly leading Atlanta to the playoffs? Sorry for the stutter. Constantly leading to the playoffs, being the franchise, and just being a great player. Can he do that? Will he be back to his old self? I think he will be, but he has to be in order for this Atlanta team to go to the playoffs. Okay, and they have the second question. Again, it's another wide receiver question. I have a lot of wide receiver questions for this one, and I got more coming up. Okay, so they have to replace Ronnie White. Sorry, I had to think for a second. You got to replace Ronnie White. I know he didn't do much his last few years there, but he was still a solid player. You know, he didn't do much in terms of start, but he was still solid. So now they got to replace that production that he had in Atlanta. And do they have somebody on the roster now? I don't know. That's why I have that as a question. And finally, the pass rush. This pass rush is probably the worst pass rush in the league last year. Was probably the worst pass rush in the league last year because their number 1 guy, their number 1 sack leader, had 4 sacks. How does that happen? You have to get a better pass rush if you expect to compete for a division title and compete for a Super Bowl. Okay, Carolina. You know, this may be a weird question, but can Cam be better? I know what you're thinking. He won the MVP last year, but he did that without his number 1 receiver. Now, his number 1 receiver is back, and the other receivers have a year under their belt. So these receivers are a year better. Calvin Benjamin's back. Maybe he could be better. I mean, remember, he did not complete 60% of his passes. He completed less than 60% of his passes. Keep a lookout for that. Okay, they have got to replace Josh Norman as their number 1 corner. Now, one of their corners got hurt last year. He's coming back. They just drafted 3 corners. They have 5 picks. They drafted 3 corners. They're hoping one of them is going to step up and be a starter. But you got to replace this guy. Say what you want if he was a system corner or not. He was still their best corner last year. So you got to replace him. And actually, I answered the third one. I forgot. Again, it's the receivers. Against the receivers. Can they be better? Can they help Cam be better than he was last year? Because remember, you have Benjamin back. Devin Funchess, he is in his 2nd year. You got a bunch of guys that can be contributors if they just prove it. They just got to prove themselves. Okay, New Orleans. They have to replace Marcus Colston. Again, it's the same thing with Ronnie White. He was not the same that he was the past few years, but he was still a solid receiver. He was still solid, okay? They have to replace that. I think he's their all-time leading receiver. He is their all-time leading receiver. You have to replace that production. Who's going to step up for them? They have Brandon Cooks. Okay, but he can't do it by himself. Other players have got to step up and be that starter. Let's see. Let's see who does it. Okay, I'm just going to say this. New Orleans defense has been one of the worst defenses the past few years. Can they finally be better? Well, really, they can be better. But can they finally be a solid D? Can they get into, like... Can they be in the middle of the pack? Okay, that's the improvement. Middle of the pack. Alright, that's not too much to ask. They have to be a better defense. Now, they did just lose their first-round pick... their first-round pick, Sheldon Rankins, to that injury. Luckily, it was not that serious, but he will miss some time. He's going to miss some time. Okay? So, and they might not have he may not have been a starter right away, but they were expecting him to be a contributor on that D. So now you have to find somebody that's going to replace that. And finally, can they compete for a playoff spot again? Well, it's not going to happen if they don't have a receiver that can replace Colston, and it's not going to happen if this D is worse than it was last year, which really, that's going to be tough to do. But, you know, New Orleans has got to get better on the D. They need to have solid receivers in order for them to compete for a playoff spot. Okay, and finally, Tampa Bay. The first question, Winston. He's going into his second year. Now, he's got to prove that he's growing. Okay, remember his first game, it wasn't that great, but he kept showing improvement throughout the whole season. Now, he's got to take it from here, which is pretty solid, to here, which is potential franchise quarterback. That's what you got to show. When you are a quarterback in your second year, in and off starting, you show the potential here. That's the first year. Second year, again, it's potential. But this potential to be a starter for a while, this is the potential to be the franchise. What's the difference? Well, the difference is, if you're just a starter for a while, that just shows that you're a solid guy. But here, franchise, that shows them that you're going to be here for a long time. Not just for like maybe 5-6 years, but you're going to be here for like 10 years being a starter. At least 10 years. Okay, and they got to get a better outside pass rush. You know, they have to get a pass rush from the outside. The interior pass rush, that's great. The interior pass rush from the defensive tackles, that's great. You know, their leading sack master was Gerald McCoy. Couldn't think of his name for a second. It's Gerald McCoy. But now you got to get on the outside. You got the inside, get the outside going. Alright? Just find somebody that can get the pass rush starting on the outside. And I'm putting this in here because I couldn't think of another one, but the kicking game. You know, it's going to happen. I mean, they took a kicker in the second round, and yes, he missed the extra point, his first extra point attempt, but, hey, let's see what happens. I mean, I'm just curious. How's this guy going to be in the kicking game? We shall find out. Alright, that was 3 questions. All I got left are the West teams, and I'm done with this, and I'll let you guys know in my next video after that one's going to be, because I'm still thinking about that. See ya.